Torqueflite 8. I'm going to do a LS kit, filter, pump bushing, band, neutral switch. Got the opening here. You can see where it's put together. Don't put that where it's staked or this drain back hole right here. Put it in between. Stake it in place. If we're not sticking up right there, we're good. Dots are going to go down. On the earlier ones it doesn't matter, you can put it either way. And line that up with that. It only bolt up one way. Alright, got these 1/2 inch. On these Dodge pumps, you usually have to use a narrow walled socket in this area because it's not enough room. Different stators and different drums. Depends on if you have a sealing ring here that goes on the forward drum. I'll show you in a minute. Just make sure all that stuff's matched up. Depends on the year model that you got. The early drums, this seal right here is real narrow. The later drums takes a thicker seal. They cut it pretty deep. You can see how it's much wider. If you put a real narrow seal on there, it'll work for a little bit, but then it's going to wear it down. It'll get to where you have sealing problems right there because there's not enough rubber. Back and forth and it'll go down. Some of your early drums, it can be really hard to put that in there because they square cut it more. And I found I'll show you on the next piston. Found that if it doesn't want to go in there, don't do this unless you just have to. So you can take that lip seal and you kind of lay it over like that all the way around, and then when you go and you push it down in the drum, it'll shove it back up into that groove. It's a little trick that you can try if you have to. Like I say, don't do it unless you just have to. Sometimes it won't seal properly. Okay. This is how it's normally set up. Somebody got extra. Let's see if we can make this come out. Yeah, we're going to do it that way. We put extra in there. Alright, taper of the tip of the snap ring goes up. I'm going to put it in that area right there. Okay, some don't have a sealing ring here, your real early models. So make sure that you match all that stator and drum up. Alright, why are you doing me this way? There we go. Got your bevel plate. Got this fiber disc. You got this really wavy snap ring. 3-tab washer. This side goes up. They only fit in one way. On your forward drum, you put this plate on the bottom. It takes the fin clutches in the forward drum. There's 4 of them. Keep this open area together on all your steels. You got thick and thin steels. Normally the thin steels go on the forward drum, the thick ones go on the direct. You got a flat snap ring, goes on the forward drum. Later kits, you're going to get these, I forget, Delron I think is what these are made out of. And this is going to go together like that. This is for the bigger shaft. It's a later one. You got 2 different sizes of these rings here too. Your early ones are small, your later ones are large. Fiber washer, and in between that's your directs. You got like thick and thin of these steels also. They apparently have thin steels in here. Your earlier ones are usually thick. So you can play with that and get your clearance to come out. This is another wavy snap ring, not quite as wavy as the one that goes in here. I usually don't change this ring up here unless it's just horrible shape. The early ones don't have this, or they might just have it without an O-ring. It just sits in there. This one's got a spring. And this washer. And this snap ring with the inside. And you're still going to put your taper up. Your real early ones of these have aluminum. You can swap it out if you want to. If this one happens to be a 4x4, I'll take this apart and show you what the inside of it looks like. Usually if it's nice and free, I just don't even take it apart. Got this snap ring. Let's go ahead and take this out. Take this little E-clip off the pin that goes through. It's going to allow this to come out. These are real bad about wearing, especially if it's the kind of aluminum style ones that they have. On 4x4 especially, you make sure this is nice and free. The only way you're going to get to it is pull the transfer case back off. Take it apart. As long as we're moving nice and free, get some lube on it. And drop it back in there with this facing down. Just like that. You can take this out if you want to.
What do I miss?
Stupidity. Nothing new.
That's the ball body for the FMF?
Yeah. Modulator valve was hung like son of a bitch. That one right there.
Yeah.
Alright. Put your taper and snap ring up. Line up your hole through your output shaft for that rod to go through. Thin snap ring goes on the bottom. Thick snap ring goes on the top. Lots of lube. Can't have too much.
Run the same filter on the outside.
Put your E-clip back on. Make sure you're nice and free. Some of the governor rings have a clip where it clips on like that. Usually the ones you get in the kit don't have that, they're just like that, and they're fine. That's fine. Now my 4x4s, I go ahead and put my servos in now. On 2-wheel drives, I'll wait till I put it on the bench. Get you a nice gob of grease and really lube up that rear servo. The other ones aren't as critical. This back one is. And then really lube up your servo. And try to keep it from cocking. Now some of your real early kits, all these rings are metal, and they can, especially this one here and that one in the bottom, it can be a little difficult to get in there and you might bend them.
That's what he said. I think he said the key broke the key for horses. On the other side.
Then he did what? Oh, come on, don't fight me. Alright, there again on this top one. It's got the metal ring. I don't change it unless I just have to because it's already hard enough to get in. Make sure there's no burrs on this pin that goes through. And it slides nice and easy. I don't take this out, I leave this in. I leave my sprag assembly in the back of it. Make sure you don't just drop it down because all that will come falling out. You got an early and late governor supports. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but written on here, there's usually an arrow and it says pant towards pan. I don't think I can even read it on here, so there's no way the camera's going to pick it up. But you just put your governor feed holes, they go right here, and the arrow goes pointing this way if you can see it. The early ones only have 4 bolts, and you can only bolt it up one way. Three-eighths on this. Now there are O-rings on that, so if you want to take them out and change them, you can, and don't. I just silicone it. They always leak anyway. Forgot I left my bolts loose. I gotta tighten my governor. I leave it loose till I get it all together on the shaft, and then I tighten it down. And I forgot to tighten it. Here, our tow housing gasket. Now if you're doing a 4x4, you're not going to get this rear seal. So if you want it, you're going to have to ask for it. I keep extras around. I forgot to order it on this one. Now, some of these have the O-ring on it, some don't. You don't get it in the kit. I don't know what the O-ring's for, other than maybe help hold that bearing up in there, but you can put the bearing on here, and it just does the same thing. So I don't know why they don't give you the O-ring. Apparently it doesn't do anything. Spring and rollers. Springs go on this side, rollers on this side. And rotation is going to be clockwise and locks counterclockwise. Let's say I leave them in there unless the springs are broken and change them out. Pretty cheap, but they're a little time consuming. Up in here, I'm going to put that little piece of metal on that part of the band right there. The rear band drum. Now, early models do not have a snap ring here. Rear ring gear. This metal washer. Rear planet. Depending on what year you got, or what kind of washers you got. 3-tab washer. Sun shell. 3-tab washer. Four-tab washer. Ring gear goes in like this. You can put grease on there if you want to hold it on. Put the taper of your snap ring up. It's the outside tabs. Wrong pliers. Now, real early ones had a fiber washer that would go here. If your band only has one notch, not two, the two notch you can put it in either way. The one notch has to go up. Make sure your washer's still on the back. There's your washers on these pump bolts. I usually just run them again if they look good. If they're bad, you can get them in the kit. If they're bad, you can just usually wrap them on the side of the table and it'll knock them loose. If they won't come off like that, just get you a pair of pliers, grab the washer, and use your socket to pull it off. 1/2 inch on your pump bolts. This is your vent, so if you fill it up too fast or overfill it, it's going to burp out here. Can't tell you how many people say it's leaking out the front when it's really leaking out the vent. I've seen them with them out spraying here. This is usually 11/16. I have seen some 3/4. Back that out. Takes this strut. Goes in this way. You can get up in that notch of that band, and then there's also a notch on the back side here. You can pop that up in there. Of course, it's wanting to be difficult. There we go. Now, I believe the book calls for 2.5 turns. I don't go by that. I tighten it up to where the band barely moves, and I can still turn that rear drum. And if when you're tightening this down, it turns it, just adjust it to where it's pretty close. That's about where I like it, right there. Maybe a little loose. And on your front band, you have this strut. Goes up in there. There's a little notch around the band right there. It goes in there. This is your other side. It's your band adjustment bolt, and I think it calls for 2 turns on the front. And there again, I don't go by what they say. I get it to where it's about 1/8 of an inch travel. Right there's pretty good. But then air apply it. Make sure it doesn't change on you. 2 clutch drums. And if it's where I like it, get the nut, hold it so it doesn't turn the strut, put a little dab of silicone into there, ¾ on here. I hit it with an impact because they like to back out. Now, take my neutral switch off. 1 inch on the neutral switch. Not a bad idea to pull this off, even if you're not changing it, because when you're putting the valve body on that, I'll show you the piece that you can come down and hit it, and if it's brittle, it'll break it. And you can buy it, it's just costing yourself more time. Alright, I'm going to go get the valve body, and we'll be back. Okay, 2 check balls here and here, 1/4 inch. It doesn't take a ball here if you don't have 2 holes right here. It's only got a single hole, so no ball. The filter, usually in the kits now they're giving you a cone filter. I don't really like those very much. You can leave this out if you want to. I usually just reuse it unless it's in horrible shape. Let me see, here's the line-up hole. Here's the line-up hole. Right there. These are 25 Torques. Your early ones had Phillips and standard. Make sure your valves are free. Normally on these Torqueflites, the only one that might be hung up is the throttle valve. The rest of it's usually in really good shape. There's a valve in here too, so if you need to, go onto there. Now the rest of these are 1/4 inch check balls, except for this big one. One there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one here, and you got the big one. It was 340 thousandths. In your early ones, you had a spring and ball that would go over here. You put your filter down in this hole. These 3 bolts are your filter, so leave those out. Your filter bolts have these washers on them. I can't talk. If you're having a hard time getting this back on there, you can loosen that one up right there. That'll allow that plate to come up. Make it easier to put on there. Just don't forget to tighten it. The filter on the real early Torqueflite 8, there's 2 feed holes. Takes a different filter, and if you're not careful, they'll give you this filter, and if you stick it on there, you might have 3rd gear on the first upshift, but after that, after it goes in, it's going to fall out, and then you may never get it again unless you really rev it up and you let off the gas, and it might hold it for a second, but it's just going to keep falling out. And it's because you need that extra feed hole for that, and it has 2 holes in the filter, and that's only on the real early. I'm probably talking 60, 64, 65, somewhere in there. There's a seal underneath here. Try not to lift this up, because this spring and ball for your detent is going to pop out. Unless you got a tool to put it in, it's gonna, you'll be cussing by the time you can get it back in there. So keep it pushed down. What it looks like. You want this end up. Alright, put your washer back on. Put your E-clip back on. Yeah, hopefully we can get a good enough view. What you're going to do is you're going to reach back in here to that park actuator. You're going to hold it over, roll your tranny over until it pops into the notch. Move your valve body shifter into that position. Slide that up in there. Get past that park actuator, and drop it down. This plastic piece right here, if you're not careful and you got your neutral switch in there, it'll snap that right off. .7/16 on the valve body. And Torqueflite 6 and Torqueflite 8, you can swap the valve bodies out, but one of these bolt holes is not going to line up properly, so they are different. You might have swap them out in a pinch. Usually these pans are all distorted. Beat it flat. And I still silicone it. People love to over torque these. I ain't got time for that. It's just about out. Just a thin bead is all you need. Put too much on there, all you're going to do is start squishing the gasket. This is another thing I hate about carryouts. People want to bring me everything that bolts to the tranny. And if they understood how many trannies I have in here, trying to keep up with this stuff is a nightmare. And sometimes it gets lost. I forgot. Yes, got to go over here. If my R&R guys bring me this stuff, I throw it away and make them search for it. If I don't rebuild it, I don't need it. place that sends these to me should know better. They send us enough. I don't know how many times I gotta tell them not to send us crap. Any of this old stuff that's got O-rings on your filler tubes, speedometers, all that stuff, silicone it. It's gonna leak. I guarantee it's gonna leak. They leaked back then. They're definitely gonna leak now. Lever seal. You can put these in without the tool, but the tool sure makes it nice. Don't never bend them. Goes in the right way. I don't know who makes it. Had it forever. And neutral switch. This seal goes on the back of it. If you had the two-wheel drive, there's a plate that goes on here for the snap ring that holds the tail housing on. This gasket goes under there. So your speedometer outside, speedometer inside. This is that cone filter I was telling you about. I really don't like them. And this O-ring goes on that pin. It goes for the rear band. I just silicone them. These go for the larger input shaft. These go on that front servo that I don't change. Just two-wheel drive rear seal. And before I forget, get to talking.